24 hours. 1,440 minutes. One question. Have you achieved your goals? Are you living the life your heart beats faster for? Stand up. Write your story. If it were easy, it's not you driving it. It's in your hands. Get out of your comfort zone. Success is more than luck. It's the idea, the pioneer, the trailblazer, the inspiration. The CEO DNA. The entrepreneurial DNA that lies dormant in each and every one of us.
Welcome to the CEO DNA podcast. Here it's all about knowledge and experience for CEOs, but of course also for founders and entrepreneurs. And for this, we have something very special today. We have the founder of the consultancy, Tina Charisma, here, but also she's a professor and also a writer. Welcome.
Thank you. What an amazing introduction. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. I really was excited to talk to you because you really had so many aspects of looking also as a little bit at the business world. So tell us a little bit, what is for you a good CEO? What are the, let's say, the DNA, the capabilities of a good CEO for you?
For me, a good CEO is someone who is connected to their audience, to their customers, and to their community. I have been very passionate about human-centered storytelling, as you have seen from a lot of the work I do. And that's just because I believe there is no business without considering humans, people. Yes. And that's how my story and how my journey started, from being able to work in an environment where I was connecting with people every day. I started my career in international development. And that world was a world that exposed me to humanity.
So interesting. So where do we start with you? So you not always had all this knowledge. So where was your home at the beginning? Maybe tell us a little bit about your story.
So the beginning for me was cross-divided between London and Ghana.
Yes.
And that in itself has an indent on any person who has to split their lives between different countries.
Yeah, different worlds, basically.
Different worlds.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess you can say the early years for me were fractured between living in London and in Ghana.
I think it's so interesting, you know, like also having those two worlds. I mean, having now, let's say, London, where things are a bit more structured, if I may say, compared now to Ghana, to the boarding school. How was this for you to experience that?
It's what has essentially made me who I am today, because I understood what opportunity was. I had an opportunity to go to Ghana, but also I was surrounded by people who weren't as privileged to do the everyday things that we had in the UK. So that made me take life a bit more serious than a lot of people my age. And in a drive to see a world that is different. And even now, it's the ethos of my company, where it's about not just creating change for yourself, but creating change for the world. And that has been my drive since day one.
Wow. I mean, we have so much to talk about, but let's start maybe also now with your company. What are you offering?
So Charisma Campaign is a communications, PR, and storytelling agency. I work with CEO execs, founders, disruptors, innovators to share their stories, which is fascinating because a lot of people will ask, what even is storytelling? But storytelling is at the bedrock of these organizations, as it helps to connect with people. And businesses who are trying to drive a solution need to connect with people, because it's through their businesses that they're going to innovate and change the world. Yeah. So I've somehow been able to marry my passion for business transformation, global transformation, and community transformation by empowering CEOs, executives, and business owners and brands across the world to empower them to use their organizations to create transformation.
Very interesting, especially for the people listening who are also CEOs or business owners. So for companies and also for CEOs, you see what is really the story behind. What are they, should tell to the world? What's the right story? Because only that really connects at the end. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct, because there is no design without human beings. And the topic is ever more prevalent now as we talk about technology, AI. Is AI going to take the world? Is AI going to take all our jobs? Well, as a CEO, a founder, or leader of any organization, it shouldn't be if you are human-centered.
Right. Yes.
If you're human-centered, it shouldn't take
Right.
our jobs. If you're human-centered, it shouldn't take our businesses. If you're human-centered, it should rather create revenue, and it should rather force you to innovate and innovate strategically. Everything for me turned around when I came back from boarding school. It was just the transformation of just seeing a world that is different to mine, and seeing that, wow, I don't have everything. Didn't grow up in a home where I had as many opportunities as many people.
Right.
But I knew I was still in an environment where I could and had to do something different.
Right. I think it's so healthy also as a parent sometimes to take their kids when they are now maybe more from the Western world to go to some missions, to some charity projects and show them the world there. I'm going now to Kenya in 1 month actually to do something, and I already take my daughter with me who's 2. I think it's very important, and I understood now also for you that was really such an eye-opening moment to say, look, I have both worlds, I have both opportunities, so it's up to me to actually also do it, right?
100%. I feel that as you grow, even as a child, you have your parents to guide you if they can. Some parents don't have the resources or opportunity, but knowing your role in this world as an individual, I think, is the most important thing for what separates a child from an adult.
100%,
right?
yes.
That process of you becoming someone who can think and function for yourself and know what your role should be in this world. And luckily for me, I found that very early on in my life.
Yeah. And I think today also with the possibilities of technology, with internet, with YouTube, with podcasts like this one, I think we have all capabilities to develop ourselves in all directions. And I think at one point we need to understand, and all entrepreneurs, I have been interviewed also on this table, so many, but also talked to without podcasts, I realized at one point they realized it's time to bring my message out and to do that. And not stopping yourself by telling, yeah, but I don't have this or I don't have this. They just found a way to get it. And this is a little bit how it sounds for you too. You just made it then happen. And how did it then start? So when did you found the company? 2017, correct?
That's right. It's birthed from an initiative to a global consultancy where I'm working with clients from across Europe, America, and the UAE, which I'm very proud of right now. And my mission has grown over the years just because technology has evolved. And I'm obsessed with technology, by the way. Let's just put that out there. So 99% of my clients are all technology-based organizations or have some kind of innovation element to it. And that's just what drives me, just because I feel like the future that we have, we need disruptors and innovators. And I want to just inject messaging to these founders, because a lot of them, they don't realize how important their businesses are. And I almost work as a professional cheerleader to want to see these businesses thrive. Like,
Right.
It's imperative for me, just because I'm selecting companies that I genuinely believe in, that I want out there, that I wish I had at certain points in my lives. And I get to be behind their success. And that is the career and business I've excitingly been able to build for myself, being behind some innovative disruptors in my own way, as of course, bringing my own unique skill sets to that. So my business and initiative with Charisma Campaign started earlier with Charisma Campaign, but my writing has been a lot less younger, even though I've been blessed to have covered quite a lot. I really took to more of the global media landscape, writing for publications such as Business Insider. I've had previews in Forbes. I had previews in CNN, Euronews, who I've been a big part of, as well as several other international publications in different regions in UAE and Africa as well. So my core theme is being able to connect entrepreneurs, CEOs, and businesses wherever they are and across borders. So interconnectedness and shared messaging as well. So a lot of my work has also enabled entrepreneurs, businesses to cross different regions and grow their global capacity and amplify their stories.
Nice. So how do you do that? So how would you now connect those entrepreneurs, or what for messages are you sending out?
Yeah, it's very important to distinguish the fact that I'm a writer, but also a consultancy.
Right.
Right. So there are stories that I do out of passion, my own passion
Yes.
of being a thought leader, a voice in the world.
What would this be, for example?
They range from everything and anything. Mostly they're culturally and technologically embedded, as well as travel as well. Just because I feel that leaders also have to be well versed in the world. So I try to put out sometimes lifestyle stuff as well, which people will think, wait, what does that have to do with business? It has everything to do with business because you have a life, right? So there have been a lot of, you'll see everything and anything out there that I've written, from sometimes travel stories to business, entrepreneur, tech stories, for example. And again, it's like, what does that have to do with anything? You're a business owner, you're a CEO, you eat, right? So how do we do this in a way that culturally connects you? Because you're going to business meetings, you're having these conversations. What is your understanding of the delicacies of the places you're going and you're stepping into? So I think I have an interest and passion for culture in general,
Right.
that I've been able to also fuse into the business world, and I guess innovating and inspiring the CEOs and leaders that I work with to think bigger and to equally be culturally versed and vultures in the world.
Very interesting. And then 2020, you had a quite famous TED Talk talking about the power of storytelling in business. So what were the key points here when you talk about, why is it important, and how can we as entrepreneurs also use it?
Yeah, that TED Talk was big for me. I think it came at a time where a lot has happened in the world. So I kind of wish like it came out now, because I feel like it's so topical
You can
for
do
the
another
world
one.
right now. I know, right?
Right
Yes.
now at this podcast.
I wish it came out now, because I feel like that time it was still early on, and a lot of the things that I've developed had not. But then that's why I so much believe in what I'm doing, because I feel like a lot of the things that are panning out, I've always knew would happen. And everyone's like, how though? But it's just, I think when you are a lover of history, when you're a lover of culture, you see patterns in the world. And I think anyone who's somehow attuned to the world around them, I think we have some kind of instinct about the world around us, and that makes us a little bit more kind of apt into business as well. So that TED Talk was essentially talking about going into different areas and how you connect, and the fear of prejudice, and also the misconception, how that holds us back. And I use a story of how there have been several situations when I've been invited somewhere, and I literally panic, because I'm like, oh, what role will I serve in that space? However, just letting go and really enabling myself to just explore and open up is the success that I get to enjoy, and is the success that every entrepreneur or business owner needs to kind of open themselves up to. The fear of the unknown, the risk, all these things that make us very human, and that we need to share when we're having conversations, even with the world and the media.
Good points. That means also for entrepreneurs to do a talk, CEOs, to be bold, to have the courage, and say also some things about things where you maybe not perfect, where life happens, where where you also went wrong, where you did something wrong. So that you said that's really powerful.
It's powerful. I think a lot of CEOs, like we recently had a Seamless of the fintech event, and it's so interesting because I shift into different spaces a lot, and I'm always fascinated by people in sectors like banking and all the other serious sectors. 'Cause at the end of the day, it's like these are human beings, and there are a lot of executives who are so fearful of the public light.
Sure.
They're so afraid. I work with execs all the time.
Yes.
And it's so amazing. That's my biggest passion, working with leaders, because I find that sometimes behind the facade are like people who are facing pressures, stress from everywhere. And I love to just bring like myself into that world and, be able to address some of these issues, just because a lot of leaders are in a challenging position where they don't get a lot of people to be vulnerable with. And I think sometimes helping with communication is the first place to start, because communications, a lot of people who work in communication will realize communications is internal as well as external, right? Yes. So even as a leader, you're building communication for your team, for your HR, for like people who are coming into the organization, people who are like you're working with every day, and how do you address that? And then there's that realm, and there's also the messaging that you get out there, So being able to really be human, to connect with that, takes a lot of work. And a lot of leaders are so disconnected from all of that. So it's very interesting to sometimes pose very important questions that kind of brings them back to earth and allows them to be leaders who are still connected with the mission and core values of the organization, but also give them hindsight for the future through strategy.
Nice. So let's talk about some hacks or some strategies. So one is
Okay.
already to look at communication, understand there's internal and external communication, connected with the vision mission. What else could be like some hacks where you said, I see that quite common in companies or also in leaders, that they should focus on that a bit more?
For me, it always depends on the sector, and because I work cross-functionally,
Right.
It depends. But I think sometimes a lot of the time people think communication is like they forget, they think, oh, creativity sounds very airy-fairy, whereas like creativity and a lot of these soft skills are powerful, right? Because they are what drives business revenue as well. I've had executives or tech founders who've gained large sums of money. I'm talking like 500 to millions of funding through just one campaign of doing a publication and getting printed in certain publication. And why was that? That was because they were able to connect their story to the world and the people who need it. And someone felt that was good enough to put money into that. So if you tell me, oh, all this stuff, what does that have to do with the money or the drive of the business? It's like, well, there you go, because your inability to get certain things that maybe you feel that are just too soft skills or whatever, like does end up hurting the company and will one day lead to the demise of a lot of the work we're doing. And that's when AI is going to come and take over, just because you're taking out certain human-centered, empathetic core skills that we all need. We all actually need it. We all actually need it.
Yeah, we talked earlier because you also professor here in Dubai. I told you I was 6 years professor for entrepreneurship here, taught different students who want to start a business or scale a business. And one thing I always told them when it came to fundraising is I said, it's all about storytelling. Yeah. And you just underline it again, saying it's so important, because I'm such a strong believer in it, because at the end, you sell I don't want to say a dream, but you sell a story, you say a path forward. They don't invest in the past, in the future. Yeah, so interesting.
That's right.
And then you say also technology is so important. So now technology is exponential growing. One hot topic is AI. You mentioned it now. So how important is AI and how should we use it when it comes to storytelling? Because is storytelling not something personal that we should do, or can the machine help us? How do you see that?
So I can tell you more into my work, because I'm within a sector where people are asking, what is going to be the future for your work, right? But it's great because I get to have hands-on experience every day. So I can tell you a good insight in terms of how I'm using AI to become better
Right.
rather than it replacing me. There are so many experiences that I've had as we've kind of already started to dig into that some technology would really find hard to kind of go through all of that and live that, right? Which means that there's an element of me that is still so ingrained in my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way in which I can get it out is through adaptation and through technology. But I still have to be an artist in that process.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very much in possession of my artistic gift, which again is very indented within me, and that I'm working every day to bring out into the world and helping others to bring out to the world as well. So that's exactly how I see the AI and technology narrative at the moment, where we're going to have to be very good artistic stewards of that God-given gift within us and bring that into our various worlds, wherever that may look like.
But it's still a combination between us being the artist and also technology. Is that correct?
No, 100%. One thing I'm noticing is the quality and standards has to get better and better and better, just because we have this new democratization of technology. But that's good. I feel like this is what campaigners have been fighting for so long, right? That we want diversity, we want democratization, we want all these things. But what we need to understand is that when we do have that, the world continues to shift and change and adapt. And it goes back to that cultural aspect that I was saying, where it gives you foresight, where I'm a steward of the world and really just patiently looking at history and the future, to be a futurist, to understand how every period of time there's been transformation. Historians will call it epochs in times, right? Where you have one massive thing that happens that changes the world. And then you have another thing that changes the world. So business people, innovators think they're playing God and that they're going to create something that's going to change the world. I mean, you work with entrepreneurs and CEOs. Everyone thinks that they have that thing that is going to change the world, right? But it's always changing. And the world will also change us, right? So I think it's just really being able to kind of work with that, work with whatever we've been given, innovate, pivot. I have pivoted so many times as a media person who is now owning a consultancy and who's also in education as well. Like that shows a lot of the, I guess, adaptability in me. That again comes from all these cultural experiences I've had to grow up with. Like moving a child from one place to another is adaptability. I'm always adapting. Right. Always going to different places. Like I flew in from Dubai flew in from the US the other day, was in London, and then came straight to Dubai for a program. I didn't have much time to rehearse, but all of the things I said was inside me.
Yes.
I didn't have to create or try and pretend it. And I guess that can be very powerful in itself, to really be able to live and breathe these things and share it naturally.
Yeah, interesting. So now, as a consultant and a writer, how do you balance between more the creative work and expression towards the entrepreneurship and business solution mind? Because I think that's also a little bit, right? So the business solution, I would argue, it's a bit more processes and standards and so on. And the other side is a bit more writer, more the creative artist approach.
Honestly, I love it. I love being able to do both. I'm still young, so I think learning for me is I'm gonna be in the game for a long time to come.
Yeah, good.
And the writing, what it does for me is it allows me to still be curious. That's why I haven't left there. A lot of people have said, "Oh, why are you gonna do this and that as well?" But the reason why I've held on to the writing, because it makes me a lifelong learner. They say a lot of good storytellers are people who've experienced a lot. I'm always creative. I always got ideas. And that's because I'm always learning and writing. I'm always able to bring some kind of strategy and solution That's because I'm always writing, and writing means you're always having to take in information. I'm going places, I'm having conversation, I'm sometimes feel like a researcher. I studied international relations and sociology, by the way, and a lot of sociologists will understand that sometimes when they're researching, sometimes they have to go covert or overt, right? And sometimes they have to make themselves subjects of the research. And it's so fascinating because I feel like sometimes as a writer or a media person, I get to sometimes do that when I'm working with brands. And back then I was hosting a radio show.
Is there a certain overlapping where you said, okay, of course the storytelling, but is it more that you try to have individual persons represent the brand, or is it better to build a brand? That's also one question we entrepreneurs always have. Do I need to bring out my face? So everybody told me, Michael, you need to do a podcast. It should be your face. Or before I said, no, just put the company logo. But they said, no, it needs to be your face. How do you see that?
You have some founders who are like, no, T, I don't want to be the face. And that's also okay, because at the end of the day, there's different types of leadership, right? And that has to also sink in with the mission of the organization, right? If you have like a certain kind of mission-driven organization, or a certain kind of organization where maybe it's about certain issues, if like anyone ticks that box, you definitely want to work with me. Because I feel like their business is doing something in the world. And it could literally be HR. It could be something fintech. I'm working with several fintech companies now. But again, you're changing the way in which we are making transaction. Yeah. It doesn't sound sexy, but that it should, right? Because what wasn't there before, if you're creating it, that is what innovation is, right? You're creating a world that wasn't there. And even if it was, like, where are you doing it differently? And that's why the cross-culture element of my work is very different, because we may have like a fintech company that is well known in the US, but if you're doing it in the UAE, you're serving an audience who maybe can't access the US market. And I want to be part of that. I want to, for me, that's cool. Like let's tell our Middle East fans what's going on and what's how we can connect. It's very important. Like, don't build a business and then keep it quiet. Then why are you building a business for?
Yeah. So is it important now, let's say both extreme, to be more the rock star of the company and say, look, that's me and your face all over? Or is it more, let's say, the company logo and some more faces? Or would you say it's more important to have one main face as a company?
I feel like a lot of people who remain at the top of the organization, when they have good personality, it's perfect.
Like
it's
Steve
perfect.
Jobs.
Steve Jobs. One of the reasons why I love Prime at the moment, like, yes, all of these things, when they have good personality is good. But the downfall is when the founder or CEO doesn't have a good personality, because then it causes a lot more damage than it should, right? But then that's why PR will allow us to focus on other areas that we want to create. And storytelling is so powerful because it's digital media. Digital media, so many times it's censored in a sense of, like, there are people out there who are creating messaging, and that messaging defines your reality. And what I'm saying is, I want to be part of something that is good enough to create messaging for, something that will inspire and change the world.
I'm a global CEO, but also, of course, one of the shareholders of the creator platform Copecard, so you can sell digital courses. And yesterday we had a webinar, and first time I thought I kind of hold myself back, and I wanted some of my team members to do that. And it was so interesting. I was so happy. So not to always be in front. I think that's also good to maybe have some other team members also sometimes to push forward. At least that was my experience yesterday. I was in the chat, I was hyping like crazy, hearts, fire. Everybody wrote me, that cannot be you, somebody's using your name, but it was actually me. I was just so proud and happy of my team that they also step up. I think it's a kind of also what you see at Apple, like, yes, there is one CEO and also Steve Jobs, but there are also some other people behind it. And at the end, it's the community that drives the change and that writes the story of a company, I believe.
100%. That is what I'm really trying to instill into leaders as well. Just
Yes.
for me, and I think you would call it an ethos as well, just because it really depends what you believe at the end of the day. But I feel like, if I have to be honest, that is my ethos, and that's what I believe. Just because leadership in itself is about empowering and lifting others, right? So if you want to be a leader and you want to build something different, I'm sorry, but it's like you're going to have to try and do things different, right? And it's going to take lifting up everybody around you to then lift up your mission, because that's when you're more powerful as a leader. So I think a lot of leaders as well become leaders by default and don't actually even know what leadership is.
Right.
There are a lot
For
of
sure.
pressures
Yeah.
that I know a lot of people in careers and different industries who are losing themselves every single day. But that's because of someone else,
Yeah.
right? But imagine if we can change that way in which we structure that organization, that way in which we structure the transformation and the technology, and then trickle it down to the services, and then inevitably to your audience and your customers.
Right.
Who is that going to benefit?
Yeah.
It's going to benefit every single person as a whole. So honestly, it's a win-win situation, but sometimes it takes a lot to push through. And before I just jump out, the reason why a lot of people get stuck is because they're used to doing things the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is one of the reasons why I pivoted into this path for me, because I realized that I was part of organizations that I would never create change.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very interesting just to underline also the point you mentioned is, I think, especially for so many people starting a business, founding a business, I think it's very important at one point to, to work together also with other people who help them to get them to the next level. You sometimes think I can do everything, but I invested or took over even many companies before where the founder started something, and then you need some additional expertise because we all need to learn and move on, and the company managing with 10 people, 50 or 100 people or 1,000 people is different. So I think that's very important. Yeah. How do we see the future? So let's look out of the future of storytelling. I already asked about technology. You say AI and human will somehow interact and have to work together. What else do we see in the future?
I think globalization, of course, is already here. There's no doubt about that. But the way in which we grow, I think a lot of the time we're talking about technology and AI, but we're forgetting that as we grow, the world is also changing. So I think the adaptability as well, the aspect that people are ignoring is going to just come back to bite us. And we've seen that through COVID, right? Where one big thing happens and the one thing that we had, which is, again, the human aspect, the interaction, is taken away. So I feel like sometimes the more we build and focus our attention on one thing, that's how that thing just becomes the very thing that leads to our demise as human beings. And I just say that again, just from a more introspective, kind of futurist perspective, just looking at history, human beings do have the capacity to be very self-centered. We have a lot of good in us, but also there is a lot of capacity to do lots of different things, right? So I'm just very interested to see how accountability will kind of face up within the upcoming years. What is power going to lead people to, and to what ends, And this is a very, again, human, but very real and technological issue we have here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting. Tina, we could talk still for hours. It's such an interesting topic. The power of storytelling in our business. I think all the entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs understood there's a lot more we can do actually to really connect us with our mission and vision. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm excited to talk to you soon again.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome.
Don't wait for your future. Create it. The countdown is on. What are you waiting for? With smart technology, intelligent automation, future-proof processes, and ease of use. Grow as a team. Grow with your community. Create space for your potential. With Cope Card, you can make your digital business easier, faster, and simply better.